is the key to prosperity. Free trade will bring on a Great Depression.
The North American Union is the merger of the United States, Mexico, and Canada into one super country.
I don't see the likelihood of establishing a North American Union in our lifetimes.
The road to North American Union is not a new development.
Canadians are saying no to the North American Union and yes to Canada's sovereignty.
The discussion here, and certainly I've been part of it and an advocate of it in a way, is that Canada, the U.S. should seek to have a deeper type of integration with more predictable rules.
Our economies now are very integrated. Our societies are growing increasingly integrated. What's needed now is a North American idea for all three.
What kind of stuff was discussed at this meeting regarding the future of North America?
I don't remember exactly.
There are clear economic benefits from having a common currency.
And he said himself there will be our North American Union, a one North American currency called the Miro.
I'm a staunch Canadian nationalist because of globalism.
It's essentially the centralization of power into fewer hands. Canadians, Americans, and Mexicans will lose their sovereignty.
Maybe national sovereignty is not such a good thing. I don't buy into the conspiracy theories around meetings.
Do not be embarrassed. Do not be shy. Who cares if they call you conspiracy theorists? This is the truth.
You get political change of fundamental nature of this sort only if you have a real big earth-shaking event.
It's not going to stop with the North American Union. It's going to be one further step along the road to one world government.
One world government?
Yeah.
I personally think it will come. It will come.
In your time serving as the Canadian ambassador to the United States and subsequently helping forge the free trade agreement between Canada and the U.S., did you ever discuss the possibility of creating a North American Union that would be much like the existing European Union?
No, that was never discussed, no. I think this was seen when it was launched by the Mulroney government in 1985. It was seen as a trade agreement. We didn't even talk of it at that time. The government did not want to talk of it at that time as a free trade agreement. It was seen as a comprehensive trade agreement with the United States, not with Mexico or any other partner. It was bilateral in concept. As time went on, we began to talk about it on both sides of the border as a free trade agreement. But there was never a notion, to my knowledge, anywhere in the system up on top or in the bowels that thought of this as a North American Union. After the free trade agreement was signed in 1989 and came into force, United States and Mexico decided they wanted to have a similar agreement. And they proposed negotiations on a bilateral basis between the two countries to have another FTA of their own. Canada was concerned about that because we felt, among other things, that it could be a painful experience if Mexico, for example, were able to get a better deal than we did, or get concessions that we didn't, in order to protect our interests. And they were actually going to model their agreement on the Canada-US agreement. It was going to be a Canada-US agreement, whatever add-ons they could put, or adjustments. So we said, well, we want to be part of the negotiation. So then NAFTA came into existence, and you had there for the first time the notion of trilateralism, or a North American continent.
One has to look at what has been the effects of these agreements. And they've been very good for some powerful sectors and not at all good for poorer people, for working people, for those that are not benefiting from corporate profits. So here in Canada, for example, since we signed the bilateral free trade agreement with the United States, 2/3 of Canadian families have experienced a decline in their real incomes. Also, if we want to talk about the North American Free Trade Agreement in Mexico, some 2 million Mexican campesinos, that is peasant farmers, have been displaced from their land. Some have migrated to cities. About 500,000 every year try to enter illegally into the United States to find work. So it's not so good for people at the bottom of the social ladder.
The Zapatistas, who launched their rebellion on January 1st, 1994, accusing the problems of Chiapas on NAFTA, got it backwards. The problem of Chiapas in southern Mexico, and all of southern Mexico, is not NAFTA, it's the absence of NAFTA. I think the beauty of North America is that our three countries are pragmatic and they're problem solvers. They ask themselves, we've got a problem here in our economy, we've got a problem here on our borders, we have a problem in the environment, how are we going to solve it? Is the best way to solve it is if we do it at the local level, at the national level, or would it make more sense if we explored it at the continental level, or the global level? We determined a long time ago that the best way to deal with trade is at the global level. The General Agreements on Tariff and Trade in 1947 decided on a course that would systematically, over time, dismantle trade barriers. And they have. They brought them down very far. Not far enough, but they brought them down very far. That was done at the global level. I'd be in favor of continuing down that path of negotiating between sovereign governments to solve different problems, to create an institution, create a broader sense of identity or of North Americanness as part of an instrument to help us avoid our parochialism and solve shared problems. NAFTA was essentially a business contract aimed at dismantling trade and investment barriers and assuring all three countries that their sovereignty would not be affected by this and that they would remain independent. Now, one of the major concerns that Canada and Mexico had about NAFTA was that it might open their capital to being taken over by U.S. multinational corporations.
If you are a large corporation and you are given national treatment with any country, meaning as a corporation, even if you're a foreign corporation, which most of Canadians, Canada's primary corporations are foreign controlled these days, that you're given the rights of a citizen in that nation with the powers of a citizen. And corporate rule is pretty much free trade. But where it sits right now is that as the corporations have gained the status of citizens, they can challenge our laws. So even if municipalities, federal or provincial bodies establish laws for our country, for the best interest of our country based on our collective will, then the corporations can successfully challenge those laws and sue us for passing laws that infringe upon their investments and their trade.
And these are the provisions that allow a corporation to sue a national government if it feels it is not getting the treatment it would be entitled to under NAFTA. The first case against Canada under the investor state provisions was a suit brought by Ethel Corporation from the US that was wanting to market in Canada a gasoline additive called MMT, which is a suspected neurotoxin.
It was stated by our government that we're going to ban additives to fuel that involve methylmanganese because it's harmful to individuals neurologically and otherwise. It's been linked to attention deficit disorder and other problems. But when we passed those laws, the Ethel Group sued our country, said, how dare you pass laws that restrict our trade, and even we're doing it for the benefit of our own country.
Well, Canada, the Canadian government responded to that suit by effectively apologizing to Ethel, by paying them $13 million US in compensation, and by withdrawing the ban. So it didn't even have to go through the full adjudication process before Canada backed down.
Our country is being defined and shaped by regulatory bodies by corporations who have no accountability whatsoever to the Canadian people. I don't see that this harmonization, unionization is good for the Canadian people, period. Never was, never will be. It needs to stop.